What is up, everybody? My name is Shiv, and today we're going to be taking a look at some more cards coming out for the mean streets of Gadetzan. Now, interestingly enough, all these cards basically share a kind of core theme. They either do a specific thing or they work well within that specific thing. The exception of one card, but yeah, sue me. Alright, so the first card we're going to talk about today is the Smuggler's Run. What does it say fun like a bunch of Murlocs on a motorcycle? I don't know. 1 mana paladin spell, give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Now, this card has some really cool implications. One of the biggest problems we've always had with any kind of spell that gives enhancement to a minion is you had to have the minion on the board first before you could get the value off of it. Now, not so much. Now you get the bonus to all the minions in your hand, thus suddenly increasing their value quite significantly. So let's go through a couple little permutations here. Argent Squire is now a 2/2 with Divine Shield. Gee, where have we seen that before? Oh, but it's only 1 mana. Alright. Argent Commander now suddenly becomes a 5/3, which makes him a little bit busted if you ask me. So you can suddenly turn cards that have generally been valued at to somewhat really decent now. And I think that's kind of a scary trend. In a world where everybody is playing with this whole buff in hand mechanic, this just fits in quite nicely. But if nobody else is playing that buff in hand mechanic, then is this overly good? It's going to be a wait and see. A lot of these cards that have that whole buff in hand, their statting for their minions is not overly that good for the pricing. So it is going to be kind of one of those things of, oh yeah, you're kind of paying a little bit too much in one sense to get this value here. That's somewhat problematic, not to mention the fact that most of the rest of these types of cards are random based, okay? This one not so much, but the rest of them are random. Okay, we're going to move on to another card that actually works really good with Smuggler's Run, and I'm talking about the doppelganger. 5 mana for a 2/2, Battlecry, summon 2 copies of this minion. Now, I'd just like to point out that every class has access to this, so there's going to be some really interesting shit there. Any class that has access to the ability to buff cards in their hand is definitely going to be trying to use Doppelganger. And here's why I say that. There's nothing scarier than playing a 5 mana card and all of a sudden getting 3 4/4s or 3 3s or whatever. It becomes kind of a scary scenario for a lot of classes. Now, the fact that it's a Battlecry means you can use Bronzebeard and all of a sudden you've got a shit ton of Doppelgangers on the board. 5 to be exact, plus Brawn equals 6 total minions on the board. So keep that math in mind. So yeah, all of a sudden, Smuggler's Run's looking pretty damn sweet. Looking pretty damn sweet here, ladies and gentlemen. And I definitely think that's going to be something we're going to see people using. But I'd like to point out something. There are ways of dealing with this scenario here. Flame Strike exists, Brawl exists. I mean, there's lots of board clears that exist. Fuck, even Shaman have new board clears that are basically going to shit all over this. So it might seem really powerful right now, but the reality is there are so many counters to this kind of line of play that it's not even funny. But we'll have to wait and see, alright? Personally, where I see this having value is immediately after one of those board clears, okay? You kind of leave this in reserve, waiting for a board clear to happen, taking out the rest of your board. Then you go ahead and lay this out, pling, get that value. They just spent one of their board clears. It's highly unlikely, depending on where they are in their deck pool, they're going to have the second one on demand. So I definitely think this has some value. Alright, moving forward, we've got the Grime Street Protector. 7 mana for 6/6 taunt. Battlecry, give adjacent minions Divine Shield. I'm not going to lie, I don't really care for this card. It's another big bloated paladin card that's not overly that effective. I'm not a huge fan of it. Now, I can definitely see some value after doing something like a Doppelganger and then putting this down in between them and using those guys to trade to remove a minion. Yeah, sure, why not? You get to sustain your board, you grow a 6/6 on it, and you tempo out their trades. But at that late of a point of the game, yeah, I don't think that's overly that good. It all depends on how big you got your Doppelgangers. If they're 4/4s, then definitely this has value. But if they're not so much. But I mean, I could see this used in Arena. I could definitely see this used in Arena. But yeah, that's about it. Not a fan. Alright, moving on to the next card. We've got the Grimy Gadgeteer, 4 mana, 4/3 warrior card. At the end of your turn, give a random minion in your hand +2/+2. Okay, so again, it's random, which does kind of suck in so many different ways, and it has very low health. So I'm going to tell you this right now. This might as well also say taunt insulted your grandmother, called her a whore. Because they're going to use whatever spell, whatever trade they could possibly do to kill this. Allowing this to get multiple turns of value and buffing your hand can be really dangerous. Can be just downright punishing. Alright, so this is definitely going to be an auto kill on sight sort of card. But does that mean you shouldn't play it? Fuck no, you should play this shit. Hell yeah, if you're going to go with these buff in hand type decks, then by God, play this shit. Nothing says go fuck yourself like pulling the teeth out of an aggressive deck, say like a Tempo Mage, or even a Hunter, or a Shaman. Alright, nothing says go fuck yourself like pulling those tools out of there. Alright, so I like the card in principle. Will it see play? It's going to be wait and see. I kind of have a couple ideas for a deck design, but I want to see the rest of the set before I start coming up with anything specific. Alright, moving on. Brass Knuckles. Alright, so we had one warrior card that I definitely could see people possibly playing with, and then we get this piece of shit. 4 mana for 2/3, having the whole buff in hand randomly ability. Okay, so that's kind of cool. You're technically buffing, you know, +1 4 times or 3 times here. That's not horribly bad, right? But it's 4 mana, so here's what ends up happening. You play this 4, you attack, you do 2 damage, you buff one of your minions in your hand by +1/+1, and then he plays Harrison Jones. He gets 2 card draws and has a 5/4 on the board. So that +1/+1 buff, how good does that feel considering it costs you giving your opponent 2 card draws? It doesn't feel very good at all, ladies and gentlemen. Matter of fact, it feels like total shit. Doesn't mean I don't like the art of the card. It doesn't mean I don't like the attempt that they're making here. It's just a really bad card. It's a really bad card, because let's not lie to ourselves. Harrison Jones is a thing, and it's seen a lot of play lately. Moving on, we have the Rat Pack. Now, when I first saw the Rat Pack, I went, oh, this could be special. And in all honesty, I still feel that way. 3 mana for a 2/2 Death Rattle. Summon a number of 1/1 rats equal to this minion's attack. Okay, so obviously, Abusive Sergeant has value with here. Dark Iron Dwarf has value with this. Any of the buff and hand mechanics have value on this. As a matter of fact, it can be better than a Infested Wolf can ever be. Infested Wolf will always only give you 2 things. This could give you way more. Just with Abusive Sergeant, 4. Which means you can play that tactically around with, say, Knife Juggler. Remember Knife Juggler in Hunter? Yeah, it was a thing, and we abused the shit out of that damn thing. So, could we see that coming back with this one card? Most likely. Most likely, ladies and gentlemen. If this card sits on the board for more than 1 turn, then, yeah, that's kind of problematic. Alright, if you put this down, expect for it to probably suicide on something the following turn, right after it gets buffed up. And expect Knife Juggler to be in that sequence. Just expect it, guys. Just fucking expect that. Outside of that, it's kind of not overly that spectacular of a card, but it does have some great potential. Alright, moving on. Knuckles! 5 mana for a 3/7 after this attacks a minion. Yes, I know, Hunter not going face. What the fuck? It also hits the enemy hero. There you go. It still goes face. I love this card just for the principle of the fact that it's actually encouraging Hunters to do something other than SM Orc. I really do like that concept. I really do. Not to mention the fact that it works very well with the whole buff in hand mechanics, and also would work well with Abusive Sergeant, so you can get some really good value out of it. But let's not lie. Look at this thing. This screams hex me, kill me, execute me, use removal on me now, because I'm going to make it hurt. It screams this loud as day. And that's a good thing, guys. At 5 mana, if they're using a Hex, if they're using any of their direct removal options on this, then they're not going to have anything, say, for the Highmane, or the Sylvanas, or the Ragnaros, or the whatever the hell else you're putting in your fucking decks these days. Alright? This is a great way of pulling teeth. And if they don't have the removal option for it, you're going to punish the shit out of them. So how is this a bad card? It really isn't. It really isn't. It does have some value. But could this be another Princess Hunan? It might actually fall into that category, guys. It might actually do that. But all in all, I'm still going to play with it. I'm still going to have fun with it because I definitely see some potential for this to get completely insane. But we'll have to wait and see, as with almost everything. Alright. And the last card we're going to take a look at is another legendary. It is Don Hancho. 7 mana, tri-class card. Works for paladins, works for warrior, works for hunter. It's a 5/6 battle cry. Give a random minion in your hand +5/+5. Now, I'm going to cover a couple things here. Now, when people looked at this like, oh, you could do some sort of OTK charging deck with it. And I was like, you could. Or you could just use this in combination with Bronzebeard and give something a +10/+10. I like that idea a whole lot better than some of the other ideas. And then what I started coming up with is like, yeah, and if I had a way of just damaging Hellscream on the next turn, I'd deal 20 damage. And I was like, oh yeah, wait, it's Warrior. Of course I can do it. So yeah, we definitely could see some really cool possibilities. This is going to be one of those cards you tactically want to be very sound in how you're playing it. But therein lies where there's going to be some problems. This, because it's random, is not going to be the easiest thing to target directly that minion you want to buff up. Alright? So, might be a little problematic to say the least. But at the same time, it's still not a bad card. A 5/6 for 7 is kind of shitty, but if you're adding a +5/+5 to any card in your hand, even a fucking Argent Squire suddenly becomes a 6/6 for 1 mana. That's huge fucking value. I don't give a fuck who you are. That's huge fucking value. Alright, so it's kind of cool here. I honestly think it's kind of cool. And you remember, you know, Knuckles there, also known as Harambe Strikes Back? Oh, hey, Harambe, become an 8/13. Actually, no, 8/12. Have a nice day. An 8/12 gorilla designed to taunt that also hits you in the face. That's value. That's value right there. So I like the card. I think it has some potential. But again, I think the biggest thing that's going to make everybody not really like it is the whole random aspect of the buffing. And I kind of feel like you have to do this in order to prevent some really, really painful OTK type synergies. But all in all, on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how creative of a design is this card, I'm honestly going to say this is like a 4. It's not very creative at all. It's literally playing up the same thing that they keep beating into us repeatedly. They just up the value on it, and it's like, yeah, hey, that's at least legendary value right there, right guys? Yeah, sure. Kinda, sorta. In all honesty, if it said Battlecry, give a specific minion in your hand +5/+5, I'd be much happier with it. However, in that case, you are definitely looking at some OTK possibilities, okay? You definitely are. And that is, that's pretty much why they decided not to do that, because turning any deck into an OTK is always a bad thing for any game. But that is all the cards we have to review. So now, down in the comment section, I want you guys to tell me which cards you like. What are some cool synergies you saw out of this review and you thinking of from the set we just talked about? Also, leave me some other feedback if you'd like. Let me know how much you hate me, love me, whatever. It's all cool by me. And if you like these videos, please like, subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me. Till next time, it's Shiv saying stay safe, have fun, may Orange Jesus bless you. Peace.